Hi everybody, it's Jenny from the Missouri Star Quilt Company, and I have a fun project for you today. My friend Vanessa Christenson, who is the queen of all things ombre, has a new line, and it is called I Heart Ombre, and of course it's ombre with little hearts on it. So let's take a look at this quilt behind me. Isn't this darling? When I saw it, I just thought it's so cute. I have to show you how to do this. So let me show you how to make this quilt. So to make this quilt, you're going to need one dessert roll, and we'll talk about that in a minute, or 3/8 of a yard of each color of fabric. You're going to need some background fabric, 2 yards of that, and that includes the little 1.5 inch border. And you're going to need some backing, 1 2/3 yards of a 108 backing. And this ombre comes as a 108, which is really cool. So that's about it to make this, and I'll show you how to do it. So this pattern is called Ombre Lovely Day, and it makes this darling little quilt. And we need to talk about dessert rolls for a minute, because this is a Moda cut, and it's a 5-inch strip of fabric. And usually Moda only cuts these if the designer requests it. And this roll is perfect for this quilt. So it's a 5-inch strip, and we're going to go ahead and pull one of these off so that you can see what I mean by ombre. Let me see, I'm hoping this is easy. Here it comes, there we go. All right, so now we have this, and ombre means just the gradient of the color goes from dark to light and back to dark. So it just goes right across there, and you get this light part in the middle. And most of the interesting things that happen in this quilt happen because of that gradation, and also it's the cutting. The cutting is key. So we're gonna need our roll of this, and we're gonna need some background 2.5 inch strips cut. And we are going to walk through this pattern. So this is a fun pattern. It's basically 3 blocks. You're basically making a 4 patch. You're going to make a heart block, and then you're going to have a solid 4.5 inch block. And again, the trick is all in the cutting on this. So let's go ahead and look at our cutting directions right here. And they have a wonderful grid of how to cut this. So we're going to take our big long strip right here. And the first thing we're going to do, well, let's press it, because I pulled it out of there and it's kind of got some wrinkles on it, and we'll press it to make sure it lays nice and flat. And you really do want to open these all the way up to cut them. I mean, you could stack them, I guess, but you want to open them up to cut them. So the first cut on here is 3 blocks that are 4.5. So I'm going to cut off my little selvage edge right here. And I'm going to use my ruler as the guide on this. That's why it doesn't bother me that it's not laying perfectly straight on the mat, although now I've straightened it. There we go. All right, so now we're going to cut 4.5 inch blocks, and we're going to cut 3 of those out of each strip. So there's 1, 2, and then 3. And see, each one is a little different color than the one before. And this strip is 5 inches wide. So we're then going to take these and cut 1/2 inch off the other side, so we have a 4.5 inch block. All right, so here's this, and I'm going to go ahead and measure, make sure I have my full 4.5. And if you're worried that you're not lined up exactly, then just pull it over a little bit and cut a little bit off each side so that you have an exact 4.5 inch block, because sometimes I don't always get them lined up perfectly. So then what I'm going to do is I'll set this on my 4.5, make sure that I line up all the way around and cut this little side right here. And then I've got 3 perfect 4.5 inch blocks. All right, the next thing we're going to do is we're going to flip this around, and we're going to cut off our selvage and cut 2 14 inch by 2.5 inch strips of fabric. So I have this great ruler that has a 14 on it, and I'm going to lay it right here on the end. And I'm going to cut 14 inches. Wait, let me check first. 14 by 2.5. So we're going to cut this piece right here, and then we're going to cut this at 2.5. All right, so here's those 2 cuts. Next, we have to cut 4 2.5 inch squares. And so I'm just going to cut a 5 inch square like this. And then I'll cut this in half both directions. So 2.5 by 2.5 will make 4 2.5-inch squares. Like this. So we have those. And our next cutting is 8 little 1.5-inch strips. Wait, 1.5? 1 1/4. 8 1 1/4-inch strips. And they have them running this way. I feel like you can do it either way. So I'm going to cut my 1 1/4-inch strips this way. And I'm just going to get a few of those because the rest of this fabric is just, it's play fabric for some other project. All right, so there we go. Oh, I did that on the 1.5. Good thing I slid a little bit, so it's a good thing I was off on my measurement. So I have room to fix that, although I have this whole piece right here. All right, so let's now turn these, and I'm going to stack them up like this. And if you want the deeper hue on your square, cut from this other side, because I cut into the lighter hue. All right, so this is going to be 1 1/4 cuts. We're going to get 3 cuts each time. And we only need 8, so we're going to go with 1 1/4 is, that just feels a little daunting to me, but slow and steady. So here's 6, and then I have 7, 8, 9 right here. Let me straighten this up. There we go. All right. And then we're just going to set these over here for some other project. So now we have all of our cuts made out of our ombre strip, and we're going to cut out of our background strip. Now our background strip is also ombre, but it's ombre with the design. And so that makes it really fun. So you've got more hearts here, less hearts in the middle, and more hearts at the other end. And so it just makes it really fun. Now out of this one, we're going to cut 2 14.5-inch rectangles. So all of your background strips get cut into 2.5-inch strips. And we're going to cut our selvage off, and then 2 by 14-inch rectangles. So I've got my ruler. I'm going to put it this way to the 14, like this. And then we need 2 more rectangles out of this, and this is going to be for our 4 patches, and these 2 little rectangles are going to be for our heart. So these are subcut into, let's see, background. Here we go. 2.5 by 4.5. So I'm going to come to the 4.5 right here, and I'm going to cut 2 of those. So I've got 1, and I've got 2. And again, if you want more hearts on your heart, cut them from the ends first, and then cut your 14-inch strip. All right, I'm going to press these so they lay nice and flat. And then we're going to start making these blocks. You only need to know how to make 3 blocks to make this quilt, and so it comes together really fun. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to take our 14-inch strips, and we're going to make our 4 patches. And again, you'll do your whole strip set this way. I'm going to lay these right sides together, and I'm going to sew down one side. And yeah, right sides together. So whew, I almost had my hearts facing upward. All right, so we're just going to sew down one side of this. All right, and so what I like to do now, you're going to sew both of those pieces together, but then we're just going to cut these in 2.5-inch segments. And I like to cut them before I press. I just feel like it lays so nice before, and then after, you know, it just feels a little more, I don't know. I don't know why, guys. I don't know why, but this just feels good to me. So you're going to get, let's see, let's keep a count of these. We've got 4 and 5. You're going to get 10 sets out of each of your 2 strips, and a little wiggle room in case you make a little boo-boo. All right, so then what we're going to do is we're going to press these open, and we're going to make 4 patches. And you can keep them within the color line. You can scrap them up. You can do whatever you want. It's all up to you. And even though the pattern says, you know, but patterns are great suggestions as far as I'm concerned, because I have that little what-if brain. that wonders, well, what happens if I mix it all up? Well, what happens if I do this? Let me get this one going. There we go. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a darker one and a lighter one. And of course, the hearts hit on different places on the strip as well. And so it looks like you've really, you know, you've got 4 different pieces of fabric. So what we're going to do is we're going to put these right sides together, opposite colors, and then nest in the middle. So I'm going to take an anchoring stitch. I'm going to put my fabrics together in the center. And when I say nest, you want your seams, one seam to go this way, one seam to go the other. So then when you open it up, it's like perfect in that center. Actually, you guys, I'm really proud of this moment. It is perfect. And you know, I'm not always perfect. So you're going to make 4 patches, and that's how we do that. All right, so now we're on to the heart block. You're going to take your 2 4.5-inch background rectangles for your heart block, and you're going to need these little 2.5-inch squares, and you're going to need 4 of these little 1.25-inch squares. So we've got enough stuff here to make 2 hearts, and we probably have enough on this cut to cut 2 more 4.5 by 2.5-inch rectangles. So the first thing we're going to do here is we're going to make the tops of our hearts. So I'm going to place these 1.25-inch squares on the top of this, and you should be able to place them. Oh, we got to go right sides together. You should be able to place them right next to each other without any overlap. If you have any overlap, do one and then do the other. There's no overlap for me on this, so I'm going to come and I'm going to sew up here and down here on both sides, both pieces. And make sure they stay lined up in the corner. And we're going to go up this side. And then we're going to come down this side. And I'm using my diagonal seam tape. You can draw your tiny little line if you want to. You could eyeball it. Always better to be safe than sorry. Don't eyeball it unless you're really comfortable doing that. All right, on this piece I happen to have 1 little heart. I don't know if you can see that tiny little heart. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn my block so that when I fold back my piece, that little heart won't be part of the part that's cut off. I'm going to save it. And then we're going to come over here and sew down the other side. All right. Now what we're going to do is we're going to take our scissors, or you can use a rotary cutter, and we are just going to cut off these little corners, and I'm just going to come about 1/4 inch from that seam on the outside of it and trim it off. And then we're going to press these back. And we're going to press these back as well. All right, so now we have these 2 pieces right here, and we are going to want to make the bottom of the heart where it comes in like this. So we will put our pieces on here like this, and we're going to sew into the middle on both sides. And I am lining these up so that my little heart pieces will show, my little heart designs. So we're coming in this way, and we're coming in this way. So let's do this one first. And always do one and then take a look at it to make sure before you cut, before you do the second block, always turn it back and look and make sure that it's actually going to do what you want it to. Because this is where people who are anglely challenged like I am, you can, sometimes it just doesn't work, and you want to figure that out before you cut it. All right. So now before I cut this, I'm going to look, and that's going to make my heart, and so I'm going to trim these back and trim this one back, and then we will press these. And press this one as well. And as you put these together, you can see the little heart appearing on there. And so we're going to sew this together. And I'm going to start down here from the bottom, but I'm going to try really hard to make these little seams line up right here because that will show. And so I'm going to start from this end and make sure that this seam is lined up, which the bottom seam doesn't matter too much because it will get caught in a seam, in another seam. But this one up here, you might have to just make it behave a little bit. And then we're going to open it up and take a look at it. Oh, you know what? It's a hair off. Look at that. It's just a little bit off. I think I can do better. Let me just take this out. I think I can do better than that. So it looks like I even started a little bit off. I'm going to loosen some of these threads right here. And we're just going to take this apart and redo it. Now, normally I'm not, I'm not too picky about it, but I really think this, I mean, it's off on both ends. That's kind of a no-no for me, so I'm going to make it work. Yes, I use a seam ripper. There we go. All right, so now I can make this work. I don't know why it didn't work that first time. All right, anyway, it doesn't matter. What matters is that we're going to try again. All right. Cross our fingers. Let me see here and make sure this is snug in there. Now I feel great pressure. Oh my goodness. And if yours aren't perfect, don't die over it, you guys. I'm just having a little dying over it moment right now. Oh, beautiful. All right, so let me iron this and then I will show you. Here, I even feel like this calls for a little spray starch. It's so good. Little spray starch will make this nice little heart. This is a heart to be proud of. Look at him. Isn't he cute? All right, so those are your blocks. This one, oh, and of course, these ones that we put a lot of sewing effort into, those were just cut. And you are ready to make this quilt. So let me walk you through this pattern. This is my pattern. It's a printed off online. It's a PDF version. You can get a real pattern, or you may want to print yours off as well. And so let's look at what we have. It has the dessert rolls, how many strips per color. It has, finishing the quilt, what that looks like, putting the borders on. And then it starts with your fabric cutting right here, and it shows you the strip, just like I showed you, how to cut everything on that strip. And then we're going to start sewing blocks together. And so this is our heart block right here, Unit C. And these pages are backwards because they're meant to be folded. This is our Unit B. This is our patchwork block right here, our 4-patch. And then it tells you the fabric legend right here. And I think, to me, this is like one of the most important pages because it says, these are the cherry fabrics, and you'll get 2 of each color. And you're going to make, 6 of these blocks, 10 of these blocks, and 4 of these blocks. And then over here, you have a chart for how to lay them out. And the little chart just gives you the letter and the letter and the number so that you know exactly where to put things. But I think there's a lot to leave up to interpretation on this, and you can do it any way that you want to. So let's go back to the quilt for a minute. And you can see, it just looks like you've scattered hearts all over the place. It's so fun. So they go together in rows, and so you'll look at your diagram and you'll put them together just like the diagram says, and then you're ready to put your border on your quilt. And so you're going to add this little 1.5" border. Do you have to add an 1.5" border? No. Can it be bigger? Yes. You do what you feel comfortable with. And we've bound it with the ombre on the backing as well. And so it's got these beautiful bindings that go, they shade in color. This is our back right here. And our quilting pattern on here is hearts. And so you can see the little hearts floating over the quilting. It just comes together so cool. And the quilt measures 54 by 62. And of course, we used a little heart pattern on quilting it. And it just comes together so cool. It's a clever little pattern. Looks like you did a lot of work, but really just 2 little blocks that you're making. So we hope you enjoyed this tutorial on the Ombre Lovely Day Quilt from Vanessa Christenson, V&Co, and Missouri Star Quilt Company.